Good evening, ghoulies and ghosties and long-leggedy beasties. This is Alex, coming at you from the underworld, and welcome back to another episode of... Before I get started, I just want to say I hope everyone is doing well under the coronavirus scare, and if you are feeling under the weather, I hope you feel better soon. And also today is Mother's Day, so happy Mother's Day to all mothers. And if you are the mother of nothing more than just fur babies, happy Mother's Day to you as well, because I understand how it feels to be a parent to a fur baby and not a human child. So also, as a little surprise, at the end of this video, I normally throw some questions out there to the public, and I'm going to have my mom as a guest, and she's going to answer one of those questions. And of course, we'll practice the whole 6-foot distancing thing, because she'll be sitting here, I'll be behind the camera. And so we're going to keep it safe in that regards. But without anything left to report, I want to go on and get down to what you can expect from this weekend's book review, which this weekend I am reviewing The Good House by Tananarive Due, and this is about the third or fourth time I've read this book. And I had intended to review this book for the 4th of July because there's something that goes down in it that happens on the 4th of July, and I thought that it would be cool just to kind of match it up with that holiday. But as I was reading it again recently, I noticed that there was a lot of heart in the book between mother and son. And because of that, I just really felt that it was more suitable for Mother's Day. So without further ado, let's see what this ghost story has in store for us. The Good House by Tananarive Due opens up with a horror before the meat of the story can even begin. And in the prologue, we discover the setting is on the 4th of July, 1929 in Sacagawea, Washington at the Good House, which the home you see here is the Good House. And inside of that home, we have a mambo by the name of Marie Toussaint, and she lives with her common-law husband by the name of Red John, and they're just minding their own business. That is until a knock comes to their front door and they discover it's the town sheriff. And even though he's treated them like crap for the most part, he now needs Marie's help. And the reason why is because a girl in town has become extremely ill, which Marie identifies this as a possession by a baka. So she tells them to bring the girl in, and she performs an exorcism, and she puts the evil to sleep on that property. Well, 79 years later, it's the 4th of July, 2001, and Angela, who is Marie's granddaughter, is throwing a 4th of July bash at the Good House, which this is like her vacation home. And while she's throwing this bash, she's really trying to rekindle the marriage that she has with her husband, Tariq, who is there with her, as well as their teenage son by the name of Corey. And as she's really focused on getting back together with Tariq for Corey's benefit, Corey comes up to her and presents to her a missing ring that belonged to her great-grandmother. And he explains that he had it in his possession and he's sorry for taking it. And so he apologizes, gives her the ring back, and it's this beautiful ring that has these African symbols around it, and it's very ancient. So he gives her the ring, and the party starts, and everyone's having a great time. That is, until a gunshot happens in the cellar, and everyone goes down to see what that was about, and they discover that Corey has committed suicide with the gun that Tariq said he had gotten rid of. And even though Tariq promises he got rid of that gun, Angela labels him as a liar, and they get a divorce, and 2 years pass. Now Angela is just trying to get her life in order. She's become a talent agent, and she's just trying to do whatever it takes just to get her life back to normal. So as she's at work, she gets a call from the caretaker of that home, and the caretaker is like, well, someone's interested in buying the Good House. Do you want to sell it? Angela doesn't really know if she wants to sell it or not, because despite this one tragic event that happened there, there's a lot of good memories with this house. And plus, that's where her roots are. So she's on the fence of what to do. And she explains to her friend Naomi that she doesn't know if she ought to sell the house or not. And Naomi reasons, well, why don't you just go to the house and stay there for about a week or two? You haven't been there since the tragedy. Just go and see how it feels. If it feels good, then keep it. If it feels bad and you're ready to get rid of it, then sell it. Well, Angela feels this is a good idea, so she and Naomi go to the good house, and while they're there, Angela is seeing all of her friends, and she is having some flashbacks about that tragic day, but for the most part it's good. Until she learns that there's something evil that's been stirred on the property, and people in town have started killing each other and committing suicide, and she discovers the horrible secret behind why Corey committed suicide, and she learns that the evil that's been bothering everyone has now set its sights on her, and it is up to her to put that evil to rest once and for all. From the WordPress blog, Tananarive Due writes, Due hails The Good House as what may be the scariest book she has ever written, and she says the lead character, Angie, was inspired by actress Angela Bassett. Other inspirations for The Good House regarded real-life horrors, one of which being Due had a friend whose son had passed away. Another subject was a newspaper article that spoke about a man who drowned his son in front of his playmate. A third subject regarded a shaman story about a rogue demon. Plus, Due was coping with having relocated from her family, and she used this novel to comment on heritage and family roots. Fun facts! Well, before I get on to the fun facts, I would really like to urge everyone to go to the blog Tananarive Due writes, because it has a lot of really great information on there. Not only information about her as an author and what you can expect from her, but she has a lot of really cool writing tips as well, especially when it came down to the blog that I was reading on The Good House. So definitely check her out. And as far as myself is concerned, I've added her blog to my home screen so I can learn a little bit more about her life and what she has coming up in the future. So it's definitely something that I look forward to reading more of. But for now, let's learn a little bit more about Tananarive Due. Born in Tallahassee, Florida, Tananarive Due now resides in LA and is married to the author Stephen Barnes, who she met at Clark Ashton University on the panel, The African American Fantastic Imagination, Explorations in Science Fiction, Fantasy, and Horror. Aside from Due's work as a horror author, she has written about Madam C.J. Walker, who was the first black self-made millionaire. Also, she has written about the civil rights struggle. Alongside her writing, Due is an educator where she holds a course at UCLA called The Sunken Place: Racism, Survival, and the Black Horror Aesthetic. Now that we have that out of the way, it's time to move on to the spoilers section of this video. And this is going to be where I talk about some scenes and character development that would ruin the experience of this book for you. So if you wish to skip this section, just scroll down to the comments and you'll see that I have a pinned comment with the timestamp in it. If you click that timestamp, it will redirect you away from the spoilers and bring you to the thoughts section of this video. You only have 17 seconds to do this. So ready, set, go. Now that everyone has had a chance to click away, I want to talk about a few scenes that really caught me off guard, as well as a few moments that were really some of my favorites. And the thing is, with The Good House, this is a slow-burning book. So when something happens that's out of the ordinary, it really jarred me. And the first time this happened, it was when Corey committed suicide. Then it happened again when Sean's dad became possessed and he stepped in front of a no-moving vehicle to kill himself. And the third time was when the character Art became possessed and he drowned his son in a lake, then took his son's dead body, brought it home, put it to bed, closed the door, and went about his business. The whole time his wife Liza is in another part of the house having no clue this is going on. And then the cops show up and she realizes the horror that has happened. And by how that scene is written, it just really got under my skin. Now, for the moments that I really enjoyed, that I felt were just really ones that stood out, was the moment when Corey discovered that a Baka had answered their prayers rather than Papa Legba. So Corey and Sean go outside and they are doing a ritual to try to cleanse the land. And in the process of doing this, the character named Becca runs out of the woods towards them. And Becca is a girl who Corey has a crush on, and she's like all just bruised up and scuffed up and bloody and everything, and she claims that the town badass by the name of Bo tried to rape her. And Corey had already had a run-in with Bo, so he already believes Becca, but what he doesn't know is Becca is actually the Baka in disguise trying to trick Corey. And so Bo runs onto scene and he explains that he did not do anything to Becca, and Corey fights Bo out of Becca's honor, and after the fight is over, Bo gets sucked into the ground. And I mean, he doesn't just sink into the ground, he gets pulled into the ground. And Corey and Sean try to help him, but it doesn't do anything. I mean, he just gets swallowed alive. And this is the first time on that property where the Baka has actually taken a human sacrifice. So that was pretty kick-ass. Now, the moment that was really tender-hearted in the book is also one of my favorite scenes. And this is when Angela has been possessed by her grandmother so they can save the day. And she has confronted Tariq, and they have banished the Baka, and at this point, everything is okay. It's all leveled out. And her grandmother's spirit leaves her body, and Angela comes to, and she looks up and she sees all of these canoes overhead in the trees that are suspended from like the branches and stuff. And she realizes she's like in an ancestral burial ground. So she follows the trail and comes to a clearing, and she sees the spirits of all of her ancestors just having a good time and dancing and just being together. And the unity that's experienced here is one that was just absolutely beautiful. And it's something that it really brought a smile to my face when I read it. And what I even enjoyed better was after they had conquered the Baka and they had regained Papa Legba's favor, Angela was granted one miracle. And this miracle allows her to go back to the time before Corey shot himself. It was like July 2nd, I believe it is. And she and Corey sit down, they talk, and he reveals the ring to her earlier than the party itself. And he's able to explain that they're under a curse, and he and her are supposed to come together and lay this evil to rest by using the ring that he had taken from his mother. And so they do that ritual, and from there, the Baka is banished and no one dies, and we have the happy ending that we really have wanted. And just by how this all comes about, it really shows you how the author takes all of this horrific stuff and is able to simply just erase it and show us what happens if things were to have been done right versus wrong. So that was something I really appreciated with the book. I honestly don't have anything to bitch about with the characters in this book, because at the end of the day, Due has provided us with some very realistic human characters. And what I mean by that is they're flawed human beings, but at the same time, they're good people. And I tend to think that with the 2001 era of this book, had there been open communication, a lot of the problems could have been resolved. But once again, since we're dealing with characters that are very human, the number one problem that I think a lot of people have is open communication. So for that, it really pays a tangible aspect to humanity in this book. Now, as far as bitching about characters, though, because I do have some characters to bitch about, I would have to go with the side characters, and this goes all the way back to when Marie lived in New Orleans, and this was when her husband was murdered. It was a hate crime, and the assholes there, just how they did it, it was brutal. And so after that goes down, Marie and her daughter, they end up going to LA, and from there, that's where Marie starts having the dreams from Papa Legba that they are supposed to move to Sacagawea, Washington, and set their roots at the Good House. And when they get to the Good House, Marie understands that this is a spiritual crossroad, and this is where her roots are meant to be set. And once she gets that property, of course, the people in town treat her like crap, and the dipshit sheriff there, he really needed to have his asshole worn as a garter. Just saying. And after all the crap that goes down, I mean, everyone has their breaking point, and Marie's a good person. Don't get me wrong, Marie is a damn good person. But she's had it up to here with all of the harassing and all of the just death and hatred and everything that surrounded her and her family. So she goes to Papa Legba and says, I would like to exact my revenge, please. And Papa Legba's like, no. You don't need to do that. You don't need to do that whatsoever. You don't fight hatred with hatred. You pray for peace and all that good stuff, but don't fight hatred with hatred. Well, I think there's a part of everyone where after they've been scorned so much, they want others to feel their wrath. And that's where Marie is here. So she goes against Papa Legba's wishes, which if I was her, I would have just sat my fat gay ass right down there on the ground and listened to Papa Legba. But that ain't what happened. So anyway, from here, that's where the Bacca gets released and all shit goes down, and it's just... it's a cluster. It is. But, oh my god, it is so enticing to continue just reading to see everything that happens. So, after that, my next character I want to bitch about is Becca, and she takes place in about the 2001 era here. And the moment that Becca skanked her way onto page, I knew this little trollop was going to be a thirst trap for Corey. But thankfully, Corey thought with the head on his shoulders and not the head down there. And with Becca, of course, I mean, she's the Bacca. She's trying to get the ring from Corey so he cannot set the wrong things right. And it's like, I'm so glad that for a change, some person did not listen to a thirst trap. And it paid off so much. And I mean, of course, for Corey, things still went south, but at the same time, he never gave Becca the benefit of the doubt. He fought tooth and nail and made sure that Becca did not get what she wanted, and that's what I'm talking about. I have nothing bad to say about this book. As a matter of fact, I wish I could pat Tananarive Due on the back for producing a voodoo story where she did not demonize voodoo. And also, I feel like she used all of the spiritual aspects of voodoo to their fullest extent in this story. And, I mean, we have the spiritual crossroads that the Good House sits on. We also have where there's the ancestral worship. And then also the celebration of spirits that happens in the book as well. I don't really want to give away too much on that because some spoilers will come up if I continue talking about those subjects. But I did really feel connected with the ancestor worship part of this book because I do ancestor worship as well. And it just feels like a great way to pay homage to your ancestors and respect them. And I do believe that if you were to pray to your ancestors, that you would receive answers to your prayers. And I really feel that ancestral worship is a very healthy thing. So to see how it was portrayed in this book, I was very happy about that. And another thing is, I really love how she portrayed Papa Legba as the legit Papa Legba. Like he wasn't some cocaine-snorting, sadistic spirit like how he was in American Horror Story. And as far as character development goes, the characters in this book are superb, and I absolutely fell in love with 3 of the characters. One of which is Grandma Marie, which she reminds me of a loved one who is no longer with me, but she had that just maternal, grandmotherly sort of vibe to her, and it was just very loving. And yes, she was a stern person, but at the same time, she was a good person. And another character who I loved was Angela, because no matter what that obstacle was in life, she tried to overcome it, or she did overcome it. And so she was a strong character, hardworking, and just determined, which I love strong female characters. And the third character who I enjoyed was Miles, which he seems like he's a heartthrob, and also at the same time he feels like he is a solid rock, like someone you could depend on in any circumstance. So those were the characters I enjoyed the most. And with this book, it is written in a non-linear format, and at some point you get just about a perspective from every character in the book. So you do get to spend a lot of time with the characters, but those three were just my favorite. And theme-wise, I noticed where there were a few themes going on here, one of which was you cannot fight hate with hate, because if you do, all you're going to create is more hate. You have to fight hate with love, caring, and just the hope for change. And, I mean, of course, don't take anything off of anyone, but again, fighting hate with hate just creates more hate. And so that was a subject that I got from reading this. And also there are some themes that are racist in the book. We have some parts of the book where the racism is deliberate, and it's deliberate in the way that it would hurt someone. And then it comes about in a casual sense where it's not intended to hurt, but it's still something that just doesn't feel right. And so this was something that I saw with the characters and how they differed from person to person. And it was interesting to see that spectrum of character. As far as symbolism goes, I really feel that the walnut tree that was on the property is very symbolic, especially to Angela. And the way that I saw it was the tree meant a lot to her and also her family. So when the tree rots and falls over, I really felt like that was the visual understanding that she has lost everything close to her. And just, there was nothing left for her to hold on to. And even though it felt like she still had some hope going on there, in a tangible, real-life sort of deal, she was on her own at that point. So that's how I interpreted the tree symbolism. And also, I did feel like the tree stood as an omen, so when it fell over, because it was rotted and everything, I really felt like that was just a sign to let the reader know that bad things are ahead, and get ready because this ride is gonna become crazy. The Good House by Tananarive Due is a book that feels like what would happen if Roots was infused with voodoo. And I feel like Due put a lot of her emotions into this. I feel like she put a lot of research into this. And at the end of the day, this feels more like literature than horror, but it is still a part of the horror genre. But also know that this is really a good book of literature. And if you're looking for something that feels like a suspense thriller that is also a supernatural book, then this book is totally it, because there's really not too much blood in this. There's really no descriptive gore scenes, so it's not splatterpunk or anything like that. But I do feel like this would be an ideal book to read in like a book group or something like that, because there's a lot of social commentary in it. And I know that this is a thicker book compared to the ones I've been reviewing, but by how good it is, you just zoom through it, or at least I do. And considering the fact that I've read this 4 times already, yeah, I highly recommend you read this book. On to the questions. My first question is, what is a horror book you would recommend that is based in voodoo? Load up the comments. My second question is, since The Good House is in regards to a family bloodline that's cursed, do you believe in curses? Now, I'm going to sound like I'm contradicting myself here, but when I did the book review for The Grown Up by Gillian Flynn, I said that I don't believe in curses. And that's true to a degree. And I would have to say that I do not believe a family bloodline can be cursed. I just don't believe in that. It feels like it's too Hollywood. And at the same time, I don't think that you could just sit around a few candles, say a few words, and bam, something's cursed. I think it takes a lot more than that to do. And I honestly do believe in negative vibrations. I believe in negative spirits. I do believe that negative hauntings and objects do exist. But here's how I think that works. Like, when you have a place or an object that is around an individual who is just nothing but negative, or they're a horrible person who has done horrible things, I think that those emotions ricochet and they become just saturated in a location or an object, and it ends up being a residual haunting, and it does affect people in the future long after that individual is gone. And again, these are vibrations and emotions that have been invested into objects and such without having to light candles or say words. It's just that gathering of negativity. And a good example of this is I went to a convention one time, and there was a guy there who had some cursed items with him. And I looked at the items, and I did feel that they were negative. Like, my gut instinct was telling me, don't touch that. That's like a rattlesnake. It will bite you. So I didn't touch the objects with a 10-foot pole, but there was negativity attached to them. Now, do I think that these objects had that negativity because someone lit a few candles and said a few words? No, I don't. But I think that the negativity attached to those had been because a prior owner perhaps had invested a lot of negativity in those items, and what I was feeling was like the saturated sponge of that energy with each item. So I'm interested to see what you have to say on the subject, and if there's a certain word for what I believe in, please make that available to me, because I would like to know what that word is. It might simply be cursed, but again, cursed just feels too Hollywooded up. So definitely load up the comments on your experiences and what you think about that. And I do have a third question this time, which this third question is going to go to my mother and, of course, to anyone else who would like to answer that. So without further ado, here's my mother, Sylvia, and the question is, what is the first paranormal experience you had, or experiences you've had?
This is my first time doing this, so y'all bear with me. I'm Sylvia Brown, Alex's mom. I want to wish every mother out there happy Mother's Day. My first paranormal experience, I guess I would have to say I was around 6 years old. My dad was in the hospital, and I was having to stay next door at my Bliss grandparents. And my mother was at the hospital with my dad, and he had flatlined. And the couple of minutes or few minutes that he was gone, he had a out-of-body experience that he told us about. And also during that time, I was out in the yard at my grandparents, and I heard my mother calling me from over at our house, and I thought she was home, but she really wasn't. So that kind of was my first thing. And then on my other grandmother, my Quirk grandmother, she died when I was in my early 20s. And she would always get up early in the mornings about 5 a.m. and fix coffee and have her cigarettes. And after she passed, my granddaddy didn't want to stay in the house anymore, because he said that each morning he would still hear her in there, you know, preparing the coffee, and he didn't want to stay there anymore. So he moved out. I got the house and moved in. And shortly after, you know, I actually saw her in the living room. And it wasn't scary. It was actually kind of comforting. And then not long after that, my husband saw her in the bathroom. So other members of the family had also seen her. And she gives us little signs. She'll come around with smells of coffee, roses, or cigarettes, you know, and you know, we just think that she comes around to check in on us. You know, that was always my beliefs, that when you die, you go on up. But then I believe, you know, God allows you to come back and visit or be here at times when the family needs you for support, you know. And that's how they do. They give us little signs, and we see shadow figures, and orbs or ecto in our pictures and things like that. And it's just been a lot of stuff, but don't have much time, so I just keep it short and sweet. Everybody be careful out there with the virus and stay well and safe.
Now it's time to wrap up the video, and before I do that, I would like to say thank you to Lisa G and Joseph Baylott for contributing to my Patreon account. If you would like to contribute to my Patreon as well, just go to the description section of this video, and you'll see I have a link available. For $5 a month, I'll give you a shout out at the end of my videos, and for $10 a month, I'll give you that same shout out, but I'll also send you over one of my photography pieces once a month. So that would be for the $10 tier. And if you are able to do this, that's fine. If not, that's cool too. All I hope is that you continue coming back to the channel so we can have a good time talking about horror books together. And if you would like to connect with me on social media, links for my Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram are in the description section as well. And if you haven't subscribed, be sure to subscribe and hit that notifications bell because I have tons of more book reviews coming in the near future. So until we see each other again, I hope you have a wonderful week, happy Mother's Day, and sweet nightmares.